You might be talking to them about the medical examiner.
Here, I'll draw. What's up?
I'm ready to pay dog.
You want to what?
I'm ready to.
Oh, is it your turn to talk?
Yes.
Go ahead and say something real fast.
Hiya, Louie.
There you go.
Welcome back to another episode of the Mathis podcast. Today we have a very special episode. We have a trio of Mathis boys on the podcast today. So we have another Rob Mathis and a little tiny RJ Mathis here.
Say hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
So my dad, Mayor Rob Mathis, and my son RJ Mathis, he's going to be around here as well. He may get down, he may move around a little bit, but we had a little situation, so he's going to be doing the podcast with us today.
Can you say hi, everybody?
Hey, everyone.
There we go. Good job.
Can you tell him your name?
Balls by 90.
Balls by 90.
Balls by 90.
That's
That's
my boy.
right.
Yeah. So today, Dad, if you want to kind of introduce yourself again and talk about kind of just your bio a little bit.
I
Okay.
want to talk to Daddy.
You want to talk?
Hey, Dad.
Okay, that's good. All right, here we go. So let
Okay.
Papa's turn now.
All right, Papa's turn. Ready, buddy?
We can talk to Daddy.
That's right. We're
Yeah.
going to take turns. Again, like you said, my name's Rob Mathis. Last time I was here, I was actually running for mayor. I was the county trustee, or what most folks would recognize as treasurer for Cocke County, but done a lot of things. Before that, I've been was in the Army for 9 years, Iraq veteran, graduated here at the University of Tennessee with a math degree, and since then went back and got a degrees in accounting and an MBA, and was a treasurer, like I said, for Cocke County. Worked in manufacturing for several years, was a teacher, a high school math teacher for about 7 years. So had a real varied experience, and I've really enjoyed that broad range of experiences. I guess I've come to realize that I'm a generalist, somebody who has really widely varied interests, and I think one neat thing about that is all those experiences now serving as the mayor of Cocke County have all come into play. I've also done I'm a certified mediator, both civil and family, and just always trying to better myself and improve that skill set so that when opportunities come along, I'm ready to take advantage of them. And in the mayor's position, that has, like I said, has really come into play. And everything I've done in the past is playing a key role in success in this position so far.
That's awesome. So you've been on the job as mayor now for a few months.
Papa. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
So you've been on the job as mayor for a few months now. What has that experience been like? How has it been versus your expectations and the things you thought you would be doing?
I really didn't know what to expect, to be honest. It's been 5 months, so just right at a little over 5 months on the job now. And it has been so varied. It's been one of the most busiest. Yeah, that's right. It's been one of the busiest, but most productive and fulfilling times in my life. Mm-hmm. I look at we're just looking in the office at our calendar for since September up till now, and the calendar is just every day is just packed. But every single day since raising my right hand and swearing in, every single day at the end of the day, I know we've got something meaningful done. There's not been a wasted day in that whole time, and it continues to be that way. So. The thing that I don't know that
RJ, stop, buddy.
I don't know that I've had any surprises as far as, but I tell you one thing is it's so varied. You might be talking one day, not even one day, but 1 minute about solid waste disposal, convenience centers, and the next minute you might be talking to them about the medical examiner.
Here, I'll draw. What's up?
I'm ready to pay dog.
You want to what?
I'm ready to.
Oh, is it your turn to talk?
Yes.
Go ahead and say something real fast.
Hiya, Louie.
There you go.
Okay. All right. Papa's turn to talk now, okay?
You ready to?
Yep.
That's
Taking
right.
turns. Papa's turn.
So I'll just kind of go back to the top
sure.
of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, as far as surprises, I don't know that I would say there's any real surprises, but I will say that it is such a just a wide range of subjects that you address in any given day. You could be talking 1 minute about solid waste, like convenience centers, and how to get handle the trash in the county. The next, you could be talking about the jail, and then the next minute, you could be talking to the medical examiner about issues with that. And everything in between. I mean, it's so wide ranging. Or you could be talking about the state or the federal legislation. I just got back yesterday.
RJ,
Hi,
stop, buddy. Stop.
I just got back from Nashville yesterday, and where we're talking to the state, the commissioner of finance for the entire state of Tennessee, about some legislation that would affect our county and would get more money to the county for infrastructure, and that would be a game changer for us. So it's great to be. I think the thing that I love most about it is the ability to have an impact and a lasting impact for you and for this guy.
Yeah.
The things I'm doing now are going to be bearing fruit when he's your age and beyond.
Well, and I think that's what's neat too, is to be able. Here you go. And that's what I think is cool as well, is knowing that you can make an impact, and as well as for him to see. Here, do you want me to turn? Here, I'm going to turn a little bit loud, and we'll go. You can see me. So now I know a lot of it is, very local based and issues on the local level. What about kind of up? I know you deal a lot with the state. What does that look like?
Oh, sure. Well, and to be, really, like you said, it goes both ways. We work with the city. And then with the states, we work across that whole spectrum there. So I just got back yesterday from the state where we went there to promote legislation that's going to provide more money to Cocke County for our infrastructure, so that we can start planting seeds now that are going to bear fruit for when your kids are grown up. And that's the whole goal. That's one of the biggest reasons why I ran for mayor, was to help now and then start again plant those seeds so that our kids, my kids, your kids, and beyond will have those opportunities in Cocke County to be able to, if they want to stay there, they can not just live but thrive and be able to pursue whatever they want to and create those opportunities for them.
What is your kind of approach to cultivating that kind of growth and facilitating that growth? How do you kind of approach those things? Because I was actually thinking about this the other day about, making money is not a science, really. It's almost a lot of art. Money is a byproduct of a lot of systems and processes, the process of making money, right?
Right.
So how do you, as in the position that you're in, what is your philosophy on that, and how do you kind of navigate that?
Right. It's like how to create the opportunities.
Yeah, because you can't directly go in and just be like, all right, this is going to make money. This is going to make this amount of money, right? Mm-hmm. You're more in the business of like, all right, well, how do you have to entice people to make money there. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's not too far off, because it's one of those. Like in an entrepreneur's conundrum is it takes money to make money, but if you don't have money, how do you get that started? The chicken or the egg, right? Yeah. Well, it's kind of the same situation for a local government or for any kind of a county government or a city for that matter. And that's, if you don't have the funds to invest in your county, how can you get those investments started? So that what do you plant those seeds with?
Sure.
And so that's where when I was running for mayor, we talked about the economic platform, and that hasn't changed. And we're looking at 6 key areas, and that's tourism, manufacturing, distribution, technology, local business, and agriculture. And of all those, the easiest ball to get rolling would be the tourism. Mm-hmm. And because we have a lot of low-hanging fruit, and to me that means sales tax. So the sales tax is the easiest thing that you can get up and running, because what you do is you just create opportunities. And to get those opportunities, so you kind of start asking, okay, how do you get this? How do you get the sales tax or those revenues? Well, you have to increase the sales tax. Well, that means you have to have sales, which means economic activity. How do you get economic activity in areas that you may not have it, such as on our interstate exits? We've got 6 interstate exits. Sevier County has 1. And we are tied of all the counties around us. We have the lowest economic activity or lowest sales tax revenue by like half. Jefferson County is the next closest. And we're tied with Jeff County we both have 6 interstate exits, but we only are really using like 1.5 of those. So if we can generate more economic activity, which means around those exits, then we'll be a lot better off. We can spur that growth. So how do you do that? Well, you have to have the infrastructure. We've got those exits, but we don't have the infrastructure going out to those exits to enable those to be developed to start generating those, to be those economic engines of growth that we need them to be. And I like to focus on the interstate exits because they don't interfere with the inside the county stuff. You know, you can still get to work and school, and it's not going to be cause congestion. It's just folks stop on the interstate, or even we go shopping on the interstate. You know, around those areas, like around the main exit there in Cocke County has the Walmart and GameStop and Marshalls and gas stations and some fast food places, and those are great for not only people passing through, but for the people who live there. So what we want to do is create those opportunities that are mutually beneficial for folks passing through, that we can realize those revenues from people who maybe just be passing through, but then also create employment and shopping opportunities for our local citizens. So it's kind of a win-win. And you'd use those revenues to then invest into infrastructure that is more suited towards like sewer and more better power capacity and things of that nature for like big employers, for like a plant or a distribution center. So that's kind of the chicken and the egg thing. You go after the low-hanging fruit and you reinvest that into the bigger, I guess the bigger fish, what you might say.
Yeah, you kind of get a snowball going, right? So.
Yeah, positive momentum, because and that's exactly the comparison that I have been making for the past year on that is, you know, we're in a negative spiral, right, or negative feedback loop, and we want to get a positive feedback loop going, and it's not about, you can't fix the problems overnight, but what you can do is see which way those arrows are pointing and get them moving in the right direction, and the next question is, how do you know which way those arrows are moving? So what we want to do is figure out, okay, how are we going to measure success? You know, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So that's another thing that I'm being keying in on is data collection. And I'm data collection, everything from our sales tax revenue and where it's going to our solid waste. Which of our convenience centers get the most traffic, and that's where we need to put those resources at. And an example of that type of approach is, you know, like I said, everything's so varied. You can be dealing with all different kinds of subject matter. In our convenience centers, one thing that we've done is we've moved to a systematic data-driven approach where we've got sensors on. We did a pilot program last month on 2 compactors, and once it gets to be about 80% full, it sends a message to us and to our the people that haul it, and tells them, hey, tomorrow this needs to be emptied out first thing. So it's just systematic. They come and they do that, and that's going to save us money because that convenience center doesn't get full, doesn't get shut down, which means that you don't have a cascading failure. Because what happens is that gets shut down, so then you have to call for an unscheduled pickup, which costs more. If it goes by the actual center, by the actual compactor, the sensor, then it's a scheduled pickup, so it costs less. So that one fills up, then they go to the next one, they fill that one up, that one gets full, and then it just snowballs. So if you can stop that from happening up front, then you stop that whole chain reaction and you're paying less money.
Yeah, well, and then too, you know, if you had a scheduled, I'm assuming if you had scheduled pickup, then they're coming up and you'll be paying, you know, if it's not completely full and they're coming for a pickup, then you're wasting money as well.
Exactly. So that's efficiency, yeah.
Yeah, so then in this way, it's more of what would that be, like a pull method or whatever?
Like almost like a point of sale. It's kind of like in a store. Again, with the entrepreneurship, it's kind of when you scan that barcode, it keeps track of your inventory, and when you get to a certain point, it reorders automatically. That's exactly what we're doing, except for instead of ordering new inventory, we're unloading that trash to empty it out, so that we're getting the most effective and efficient use out of that asset.
And so really, that's just kind of a really practical example of the approach that you kind of take that and trying to find systems.
Yes.
All throughout everything you do, right?
I'm a big systems guy, yeah. And that's something that was really trained in the Army. I didn't realize it at the time that's what it was, but that's exactly what it was. Everything in the Army is checklist driven. Before you get in your tank, I was in tanks. So at the beginning of the day, before you start operating that tank, it's like a pre-flight checklist a pilot has, right? You got a pre-flight checklist, and that helps you identify any issues before they become problems. We got a slight leak, we're going to fix that before it blows a gasket or blows a hose and you're out of action, catastrophic failure, right? So, and then you have, and so everything you do from you as an individual to your team, to your equipment, to the larger unit, there are checklists and systems in place that these things are automatic. And so that's the approach that I'm taking to county government, is that systems-based approach. And I think that's something, and also if you combine systems with data-driven approaches, then you're seeing playing into the revolution that's currently taking place across all spectrums of business and operations in America and probably the Western world right now. Is those things that you normally did, kind of more hands-on or more moment-to-moment or kind of from the gut. You've taken a more data-driven, systems-based approach, and it's almost like magic, the efficiencies that you realize.
I think because we had spoken before with Ryan from Maple Hall and Babalu down here, very successful down here in downtown, and he's very much system driven. I'm finding more and more that to be successful, systems are crucial, and then also I think what really systems involve or bring to the table in a lot of ways is consistency. And everybody knows consistency is key, right? And then so being able to do the right thing over and over and over again, doing things right over and over again, I think is a really big benefit from systems. And then also I think too in your space, in government and with turnover or with changing leaders and stuff like that, having systems in place helps bring stability to
and continuity
even between administrations, between tenures of people in various positions, and I think in government I think systems are very much key, as well as they are in business. The biggest businesses that the most successful sales and exits of businesses are just a bunch of layers of systems, and they're just money making systems. They're money making machines. I've been trying to think the more that I talk to business people and things like that on the entrepreneur side, it's like they're just building money-making machines and systems.
Well, you think of it, it's kind of a natural process, a natural evolution. So let's say as an entrepreneur, you have a great idea and you achieve success with that idea, but it's not systems-based. You've got it. It's almost like the scientific method. You've got a thesis, right? And so you are experimenting through entrepreneurship to whether that thesis is correct or not, right? So you go through the process and you're like, okay, yeah, this works, this is viable. Now you can achieve success without systems. It's difficult, but I mean you can get there. So then what happens is, let's say you haven't produced the systems, so you just realize this works. In order to sustain that, you have to develop those systems. You can be successful without them, but it's a lot tougher, but it's a lot easier with them. But you absolutely cannot scale that success without systems.
Yes.
And that's where, like you're talking about, from an entrepreneurial standpoint of view, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's government, whatever it is, you got to be able to scale, systemize that, and then scale it. And you have to have the systems in place before you can do that, because it gets to the point to where there's just too much. Yeah. There's not enough of you to go around. And that's why, that's one of the reasons why, from a government standpoint, that's my philosophy too, is not so much central control, but that you push decision-making down to the lowest possible level. The American military is that way too. An American corporal has more decision-making authority during the Cold War than a Soviet captain. Because you just have to trust your people, trust the system, and know that they're going to do the right thing, and push that decision-making down to where not only are the people making the decision that's closer to the issue. Just like I've said it 100 times my first month in office. Somebody would come to me with an issue or a problem, and I'd say, well, what do you think? And I say, you're closest to the problem. That means you're probably also closest to the solution. So you tell me what you think. And it's not shirking responsibility, but you're actually giving the authority, hey, this is messed up. I'm sure you know how to fix it. So let's go ahead and try that. And I'll take responsibility, but you probably know the best thing. So I'm not taking that, and there's only so much capacity, bandwidth that a human mind has. So you actually kind of help offload that. And that's, in a way, that's scaling too.
No, it's funny how many common points that we're hitting with that conversation I had with Ryan, because he was saying, like, he didn't realize that he was doing that American military style of passing down the power to the lowest level until he read Jocko Willing. He's like, dude, I'm doing this right now, right? And he's like, we're pushing it down to the lowest level, and it was exactly what you said. You're pushing it to the people that have the most direct contact with whatever that issue is. And I think it's important too, and we talked about this with Ryan, but really then a lot of that hinges on getting the right people in there as well.
Yes.
That's what it hinges upon. And then also with the American military, you're able to do that because our training is done so well, and they weed out a lot of people that shouldn't be there or can't handle that level of responsibility that's given. And a common or something that I've been tossing over my head is the relationship between power and responsibility. Everybody knows, like, with great power comes great responsibility. And for me, I've been, as a philosophical concept, is thinking of, like, okay, to me, if you want to improve your ability to affect things, quote unquote power, it's a lot easier to take responsibility than it is to take power.
Yes.
So if you want to make a bigger impact, seek more responsibility, and the power will come. So with that being said, I think you have to be the type of person that can handle the responsibility first, and I think that's what the American military allows you to do with the way that they train, and with you bringing in the right people on your team and filling your teams with the people who can handle the responsibility. Therefore, you can give them the power to facilitate that change that they need to make at the lowest level.
Well, and the fact that the American military is completely merit-based.
Yes.
Those, and they have selection criteria and metrics in place that can predict what people are going to perform. And you make a great point about responsibility versus power. I've often found the people who crave power most are the ones least fit to have it.
Yes.
So, and you have somebody who craves responsibility. Well, they're also, that means you're craving accountability. A lot of folks who crave power don't want the accountability. They want the title. The folks who crave responsibility want to do the job. And I think something we need to touch on too is there is a great misconception about military leadership, what that's like and what it's all about. Because the stereotype that you will hear most often is that, it's dictatorial and it's very directive. You do this, you do that, and no questions, and do as you're told. Right?
That's a direct order.
Exactly. That's the stereotype. And I think what they're seeing is they're seeing the end result in those crisis moments on the battlefield when it has to be that way. That when there is no time for debate. When it is time, there is a time where you say, okay, just do as I say. Just do this, boom, 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 because there's no time for debate because bullets are flying, right? So this is literally life and death. It's just think about if you're on the scene of and you put in another context, whether you're ground level at 9/11, there's no, if you're in if you're in an office building, there's no time for debate. Whoever's in charge is in charge, and you just do as they say. You just have to trust they're making the right decision. What you don't see in those situations is the months and years leading up to that, where there are those conversations happening, and there is that trust being built. And you see that leader that's the one that's giving out the orders is the one who is doing without, so that his troops they eat first. They sleep first. They get warm food and a meal and a bed first. They get all those things first. He's the one doing without it, the commander. You're the last one. And that's, again, you talk about people who are essentially taking military leadership, wiping off the serial number, wiping off the label, and putting their own name on it. Simon Sinek wrote the book Leaders Eat Last. That is exactly from Army field manuals. They're saying when it comes, if you're the platoon leader, the second to the last person to eat is the platoon sergeant, and the very last is the platoon leader. And a lot of that is because there is going to be a time where, well, one, you have to build that trust. And two, there is going to come a time where you're going to have to ask these guys to go into situations that may very well get them killed. And they have to have that trust in you and to know that they matter to you. And if you're in the front of the line getting your food first, that's, if you're eating before them and always putting them second, you can't have those moments of go here, do that, yes sir, and go and do it.
Yeah,
because you have to have that trust.
Yeah, they don't see the why those people are willing to be like, yes, all right. All that leading up to that has built that trust into which, and you're always building towards that moment.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's very intentional too. Is you're building towards that because eventually we may be put in a position into which these people have to trust me with quite literally their lives. Mm-hmm. And so it's all very intentional to get to that moment.
I'll give you an example. When I was a platoon leader in Fort Hood, Texas, we had we had 4 tanks, and 5 usually I was taking care of the company commander's tank if he was called up to the battalion or something like that. So his folks were kind of de facto members of our platoon, and we brought them right in. But when you came out of the field, you had 6 to 8 hours on the wash rack. Now that's after waiting in line for probably 8 or 9 hours. Then you had 6 to 8 hours of just cleaning your tank. I mean, it had to be like it was just off the factory floor, every bit of mud off of it. And it's like a big car wash with power washers. And the worst job there is to take that power washer and crawl up under that tank and clean the belly and the inside of those road wheels and track out. That's the nastiest job. You have to put all your rain gear on because you get soaked. Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing that we would do when we'd come out of the field, when it was our turn to go to the wash rack, well, first thing was your mom would be there she would go to Subway or Burger King or something, and she'd be standing by. She knew where we were coming in, and she would throw those sandwiches, some hot food, up onto the guys. And one, that's saying, hey, we care about you. Is your platoon leader and his wife, our family cares about you. You matter to us. And then, so we're going to feed you. And again, I was the last one to eat. And so then you get to the wash rack. Then I'm the first one in action because the nastiest job is to get up under the belly of that tank. I would take that hose and put on my gear, and I would get up there and I would clean it. And that did several things. One, it tells the guys that their platoon leader is not going to ask him to do something that he's not willing to do himself. He's doing the nastiest job. 2, if I got pulled away, like if the company commander, battalion commander needed me for some, for whatever reason, if I got pulled away, then I did my part. Mm-hmm. And then the third thing is, they know that you're not going to do anything, ask them to do something you're not willing to do. You're going to do your part. And the third thing is, I set the standard. However clean I made the bottom of that, then they all knew that part of the tank, they knew the rest of the tank needs to be at least that clean because that's setting the standard. So there were a lot of things happening that went unsaid during that. I didn't have to point that out. They just knew. And so all, like you said, those months and sometimes years leading up to that moment of giving that direct order, that's where it all culminates. And that's why that works. You can't just come in off on square one and be that individual. And I think that is really the best place I've ever seen that illustrated is in Band of Brothers, the series.
Yep.
If you've ever seen that, the first commander they had, Sobel, he didn't understand that whole big iceberg that's under the water that leads up to that moment of truth, a moment of decision. He just saw it all as, well, it's my rank, it's my divine right to do these things, and it's not. You have to earn it. And I always told my guys, and every other leadership position I've been in since then, you have my trust, I will earn yours. But if you break that trust, you're never getting it back.
Yeah. No, I think, and I could see very well how those that system, once you see it, once you can identify that system, you can see it in a lot of successful organizations and those key characteristics of finding, and then you got to find the right leaders to put in, and then also find the right people who can use that trust as well as can earn it back from their leader as well. So I think that's a big part of it. I do want to talk about more on the way of leadership. How do you approach leadership? What are your kind of key philosophies as far as leadership goes?
I think the overriding philosophy is one that when I left the military and went into the corporate world for a while, there was something that was very, very, very big stark difference to me is leadership versus management. A lot of folks think it's the same thing, but it's not. I think you could call management a science, and leadership is definitely an art. And I believe that you manage things and lead people. If you put 100 microphones in a box in the storage room for a day, you come back, they're going to be exactly where you put them. You take 100 people, put them in a room, you don't know what you're going to come back. And you come back and you have no contact. You don't know what's going to happen. So each of them has their own agency, their own free will. So you can't manage, you can't control somebody's free will. So what you have to do is you have to lead. You have to inspire them to do the thing that's going to be the beneficial for both them and for the group. And to do that, you got to be out front. I mean, you can manage from the back, but you have to lead from the front. And I think that is something that has been missing from American corporate culture for, I would say, since probably beginning after World War II. It was all about management. Think about this. Think about it. In your usual organization for any kind of a corporate structure, who is a higher position, a leader or a manager?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Usually leader's like a frontline person, right? Yeah, they're usually like barely a member of management. But you got your manager. And if you really want to do, you got your director, and all these other words. Whereas as in the military, you have two terms. You have leader and commander. And I think the reason why there's a differentiation there is a leader is purely with people. And then command is the art of leadership and management put together. And I think that's where that's why the word commander comes in there, because you do have to know, you got to know the X's and O's and the Jimmies and Joes if you're going to be a commander. And I think that's what I try to exercise, is to know my subject matter, to know, again, systems, but then also know your people and have that team building. And my philosophy on how to do the leadership side of that. Now, we've talked about systems, that's more management. So on the leadership side, I think you have to go from the inside out. You have to get your own house in order. I have to get my act together. If I'm going to, again, with the military comparison, because that's where I cut my teeth, that's where I learned leadership. If I'm going to inspect the barracks and make sure that the bunks are made and all this, the basic one-on-one stuff is done, because those are foundational, then mine has to look as good, if not better than him. I have to set the standard. Just like with that tank, I have to set the standard. So my conduct, everything that I have to get my act together, the way I conduct myself, both in the workplace and out of the workplace, wherever I'm at, I got to be the same guy, and I got to be the person, and I have to always know that, because when you decide to be a leader, you take on that responsibility. So I have to get my act together, and a part of that is your personal code. What is your code? There is a lot of talk in the corporate world right now about core values. And what are the core values of our company? And that's great. And I think every company needs to do that, because then it's your compass, right? Every decision you make is it's either in sync, it's in alignment with those core values, or it's not. And if you're consistently making value judgments that are not in line with your core values, then what you say your core values aren't really your core values. So what I do for your personal code is I call it your core virtues, because a value can change. Like we're in the wintertime, a warm coat is a value, but in July, not so much. So, but a virtue, a good nutrition would be a virtue because it's consistent. There's never a time when good nutrition is not a good idea. So, like for example, my personal code, my core virtues are faith, courage, honor, and love. Those are the things that I stick to. If I'm violating any one of those, I know I'm making the wrong decision. And honor is encompassing. I mean, that's integrity, that's honesty. It's kind of a cheat because it's a bunch of them put together. But it's kind of an antiquated term. But it's what I call my honor code, and I will not violate it, because there are going to be times when the storm hits, and the storm hits us all. We have to be ready to have that. The way I describe it when I'm talking to clients or to when I'm coaching somebody is, you got to have that armored core, that solid core, that when that armored piercing round of the world comes in, it will bounce right off. It will not penetrate that. And then you build everything else out to align with that. So you get your core value, your core virtues, which is your honor code, and then you go from there. And then it kind of all falls into place. And once you've got that in place and you got yourself situated, and you're ready to take that responsibility, then you work on your team, and that's the team building aspect. And then when you get your team here, and you can say virtues or values, because when you're talking about a team, you can say, what are our core values as a team? And then those need to be in alignment with the leadership's core virtues, and so you can see how that foundational element is building, and it's all in alignment. So once you get your team situated and get them ready and get them all bought into the core values, and plus, like you're talking about, that tells you who to promote, who to hire, because they have to live those values out, and you have to have them clearly defined so that everybody knows what they mean. You can say, oh, it's integrity is one of ours. Okay, integrity, what does that mean though? Because it means something different to everybody. So you have to define that as an organization. Like West Point, they have an honor code. I will neither lie, cheat, nor steal, nor tolerate any who do, or those who do. That's pretty clear cut. And so you need to have something like that for each of your core values as a group, and be clear cut about that. So that what that does is establishes culture. And you have to establish that culture now, just like personally, when the storm hits, to have that core that won't be penetrated. Same thing goes for the group. And then you can team build, and everybody's like-minded, and they dovetail with one another. It's kind of like the shield wall of the Spartans. You don't just protect yourself; you protect the man to your left, right? And it's interlocking. Everybody protects each other, and everybody supports each other. So that's kind of what you want to do as a team. And so once you get that built, it's like an onion. And then finally, once you get yourself ready to go, yourself in order, you get your team in order, and your team built, then you can move on to the task and the mission. And if you do it in that order, far more often than not, you will be successful in that. Whatever you set out to do, you'll be able to do far more than any of you, including you as a leader, might have thought capable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's great. I really, what would you say would be some good advice on maybe folks who need to discover what their leading virtues are? Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, observe yourself. And it's this is one I picked up from Jordan Peterson. Mm-hmm. It's good. These are all things that I've been kind of trained with and kind of been instinctive, kind of known intuitively. But what I love taking knowledge and that is intuitive and putting it into the intellect, intuition to intellect, or from the gut to the brain type thing. I would say observe yourself. Watch yourself in conversations, especially when you interact with other people. Watch the things that you say and do, and if you're looking at yourself saying, I like that and I don't like this. The things that you don't like, be very honest with yourself. Push those aside. Say, why don't I like that? And just be very analytical about that. Be your own worst critic. But then also have an ideal that you want to strive towards. Maybe think of somebody who closest represents what you want to be or what your goal is. And then don't just say, well, I want to be like that person. Well, what makes them that? Really, really pick that apart. And what are the virtues that they display, or that they embody, I should say, not just display, but embody. And as far as a technique goes, what I've been recommending for a while now, and it's really gotten great response from everybody from high school students to college undergrads to people. I've also worked with the University of Tennessee with their MBA program as a leadership coach. And the one thing that I say, it's a 4-step process, and got a lot of great response out of this and feedback that it works. And it's something that I have, again, done intuitively but never really put into a system. So this kind of brings us back full circle to the systems thinking. Mm-hmm. 4 steps. Number 1, build a marketable skill. Develop a skill, a technical skill. Maybe that's whatever field you want to go into, learn that, okay, and hone that. Next, you've got this technical skill in the skill set that you've got inside you. Next is develop your communication skills, which means taking that picture in your head, that high-resolution picture, putting that into a zip file, and transmitting that through the medium of conversation, written, verbal, whatever that is, digital or even through the air, and then in a way such that the person on the receiving end can unpack that zip file and get as close to a high-resolution image that you have as possible. Mm-hmm. To do that very concisely and effectively. And then the third step is now to take that radio that you're transmitting and receive, and to collaborate, develop those collaborative skills, so that you can now really listen to what other people are saying and glean their intents from that, and start to get some of those synergies built. And the fourth is repeat. Go back, either hone a skill you already have or learn a brand new one. Then get back to those communications, collaboratives. And the way I see it is the technical skills that you develop. Let's say you're looking for a job. The technical skill that you develop get you the interview. Your communication skills get you the job. The collaborative skills get you advancement. and then you go back and start all over again and just continue that iterative process of continuous improvement.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. That's because I really I enjoy learning about it, and I think I really want to give everybody who watches this a really actionable items. That's what's really cool about it, is these are actionable items, and I'm sure there are people who are at various points throughout the processes. Maybe they already have their technical skill down, but now they need to work on the communication or whatever. What would you say is
and you'll notice on that the interpersonal skills outnumber the technical 2-to-1 in that development.
Yes.
Because it's like I tell folks, you can be the best engineer in the world, but if you can't communicate what's in your mind and you can't work well with other people, it doesn't matter how good of an engineer you are.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like, obvious, or a lot of times in school, especially like in the math fields or whatever, at college, I remember the toughest teachers that really were the toughest ones to take their classes were the ones who were most naturally gifted in that.
Yes,
in their field.
I found the same thing.
And I think, but the best ones were the ones who actually had to kind of use that exact process, and they had to be intentional about each step of that process, and they knew that they had to communicate it to them at one point. They could see themselves as us.
Yeah.
The people who are most naturally or most gifted were just kind of, they were like, well, why aren't you getting this?
Well, the thing that keyed me into that, because I had that same experience going to my whole educational career, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing that keyed me into exactly what you're talking about was Lawrence Taylor. And if you've seen The Blind Side, Lawrence Taylor from that very first scene is the reason for The Blind Side. He was that right side defensive tackle that came through and into Joe Theismann's career. Mm-hmm. And he was a monster. He was a all-star Hall of Fame defensive lineman in the NFL. And somebody asked him, said, "Are you going to be a coach? You'd be a great coach." He said, "No, I wouldn't." He said, "Because it came so easy to me, I can't understand how to coach somebody that it doesn't."
Yeah.
And when he said that stuck with me. Mm-hmm. And so it's exactly what you're saying. The people who never had to struggle with something don't understand those who do. Mm-hmm. And so I found the people who are the best ones to teach are the ones who had the hardest time learning something. You're exactly right.
I've been really trying to hone in my communication or really elevate that. Mm-hmm. And really, what I found has been very helpful is, you and I have both been studying meditations, mm-hmm. Marcus Aurelius, and really that's my first journey into kind of philosophy, that kind of classical kind of philosophy, which, if you don't know, Meditations was never meant for publish. Mm-hmm. It was just his journal. He was a Roman emperor, just his journal, notes to himself on how to elevate his mind, his life, everything. Incredibly insightful. But really what I've found is what's really beautiful about it, and it's funny because I use the exact analogy that you used with communication, is like the way it's written. If you've ever read Proverbs in the Bible, it's just kind of little just nuggets of wisdom. Mm-hmm. That's how Meditations is written. It's just, little notes that he wrote to himself. Each one of those notes is like a zip file. And then I read, because the way I've been reading through it is, I read through it one time as like a first read through. And then I have two bookmarks. I have one bookmark on where I've done my first read through, and I have a second book, and it's actually a little journal that I mark my place. And that's whenever I go and unpack the zip file. I extract the zip file and rewrite it in my own words. And what a key or what I'm finding is the best communicators, or a good objective way to tell if somebody's a good communicator, is how many words does it take for them to get their point across versus, somebody else, or what I could, he is able to get so much information and so much meaning across in such a small amount of text mm-hmm. or words that, it's amazing. And you see the best communicators, they can come in and they can get the point across to me in a fraction of the time that it would for somebody else who's maybe not as good of a communicator.
And that also displays mastery too.
Yes.
The more concise you can be.
Yes.
It's funny you say that, because it's like, and that goes with so many different fields. Simplicity is the hallmark of genius. Mm-hmm. And that goes whether you're designing a tool or whatever it's some physical thing, or whether you're communicating an idea. That same idea applies.
Yeah, and then you look at systems. Like the best systems are simple systems, and they're I think that's why they're able to withstand. The best systems can withstand a lot because there's not a lot of moving parts within them. They're simple, at least in concept, and everybody can understand and get on board with them. And I think the thought that comes to mind there is like, you can have this perfect quote unquote machine that has all these intricate little gears and springs and everything, but if you just knock it on the side, it's going to quit. But you have this rugged, maybe 3 or 4 pieces that, or the AK-47, right? Or
I was just thinking rugged. The same thing.
You can fill that thing with mud and then pull it, and it's an extremely simple mechanism.
Or cars. How many people have you known that have bought really nice cars? They're luxury cars, but they're in the shop all the time. When they work great, but they operate on such a razor's edge that the least little thing, they go wrong. But somebody else can go out and buy just a basic car, and that thing will run. Till
the fire or the
it'll run to
tires
the
fall
wheels.
off.
Yeah, run to the tires fall off with no problems. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's something that I've been personally trying to look at is like, number one, obviously the system has to accomplish what I'm trying to create the system for. They have to. It has to achieve the end goal. But then also, you look at that system and you think, okay, well, where can we make this simpler? Where can we streamline that? And then how can we make this more efficient? And then that's where the whole efficiency and simplicity comes in, because the more efficient and simple something or a system is, the more of those benefits that we talked about systems in general come to the front. If somebody can come in, if it's a delicate orchestra that you as the mayor are having to come in and and guide every single day, that's not going to be, somebody would have to be exactly you to come in and fill that. But if you can make these systems streamlined, simple, efficient, then somebody could come in and be like, all right, yeah, this is great.
And you have to, and that comes along with the trust.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, or another way that it's, I've heard it put a lot, is the plates spinning on the, people spinning the plates on the sticks. There's only so many that one person, or how many balls one person can juggle, right? But if you're just distributing, you're not juggling balls, you're distributing them. And that's one thing I see is my job as mayor, but also leadership as well. You set the example, you make decisions. You're a conduit. Especially in my position in particular, I see this position as a conduit through which information flows, and I'm a decision point, kind of like a switch track. Okay, there's some information that comes in that just goes, okay, this goes over here, and this goes to over here, to where the people can make, the people who are better suited to make that decision. Of course, again, when I say that, we're not talking about giving up responsibility. You can give authority, but you can never, you can give somebody authority, but you can never give away your responsibility. You always have to own it.
Yeah.
So, with that said, when that information comes in, you're either redirecting that information to whoever needs it, or you're making a decision and pushing it back the other way. You're like, yes or no, yes, boom, 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 or some variation thereof, or some combination thereof. And the thing about that is what I always try to do is to keep my plate from being overloaded, is to take whatever action I need and kind of get that off to the next person that needs it. And that works really well, because so at the end of the day, you can have your inbox empty and your action items are complete, because you're saying, okay, this is in your court, this is in your court, this is in your court, because you got that trust. Ultimately, I know I'm responsible, but I'm giving that out to the people who can efficiently do that, these taskings. And so we're able to get, I think I might have shown you the calendar, the schedule for the last several months. It's just, it's solid. It's like 5 or 6 things a day on top of, those are just meetings. And then you got all the other stuff all those gears that have to turn on top of that. And one thing, speaking of gears, it's another role that you have, I think, as a leader, is not just a conduit of information and decision making, is a uniter of, like you said, the city, the state, the county, and all the operations within the county. You got a lot of things spinning, a lot of gears spinning independently, unless you have someone who's willing to bring them together and let those gears mesh with one another and turn into a clockwork, and help them all work together to accomplish something meaningful instead of just spinning in space.
Yeah. Wow. No, I think all that is so cool. I think we're running. We actually ran over, but that's good. Dad, I appreciate you coming down. This has been awesome.
Oh, yeah, we could go for another 3 hours.
We may actually. We need to come on and get some more time, and we'll do this again. But I appreciate you coming down.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, this has been awesome. We'll do another episode, because
this
is really cool. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. We will see you guys next time.